oftentimes people will say stuff and my first reaction is, well, that's a dumb idea. But then all of a sudden I always just like, well, let's sketch, let's study that. And then it's amazing to me how many times something good comes out of that. And I think some of our best stuff has come as a surprise to me. Like, I didn't think that would work.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Builder365 podcast. Hi, Amy. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Hey, Amy, you're looking good in that sweatshirt. That looks really nice and comfy and everything.
It is. It's got a hood and a zip.
Well, wait, a Builder? No way. That is just amazing. Look,
Fantastic.
We're not into shameless plugs or anything here, but yes, there you go.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. It's the Builder365 product line. Part of the product line that we have. In fact, dropping in today, our director of marketing, the one and only Kevin Shore. Kevin, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good to be here finally.
Where do we find all of this fine merchandise there, Kevin?
Oh, okay. It's okay. Jeff is not above plugging things as long as he gets his son to do it. You can go to shop.jeffshore.com to get all of your Builder365 merch right there.
Now, see, Kevin, I wasn't going to say anything about you being my son. I don't know that people would connect those dots necessarily. Look at your head of hair. How would they possibly think that we are related at this point?
How could I let it slip? Yeah, I owe a lot to my maternal grandfather for that.
Indeed, you do. Tell the fine people, Kevin, a little bit about your role at Shore Consulting.
Sure. I'm the director of marketing over here. If we got a product or an event or something coming up, it's my job to make sure that you know about it. So, if you're getting emails from us, there's a good chance I wrote those. If you're seeing our ads, that would be Nolan in my department. But it's my job to sort of preach the good word over here at Shore Consulting. So, having a great time.
Great job it is. I get that feedback, Amy. I know you do too. We just get that feedback about the quality and even the volume of the stuff we put out. Hopefully it's not too much, everybody, but you got to do what you got to do in business, right? So
got to reach the audience.
Absolutely. Well, again, happy to have you here with us for this Builder365 episode where we celebrate all things home building and the real estate market at large, the way that people live. And it's really interesting. We're officially now into summer, and the home building business is, look, it was where I live, it's going to be 100 degrees today, but the business seems to be not quite as hot as the weather. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, and we're seeing something we haven't seen in a very, very long time, and that's resale inventory. We're starting to see resale inventory, and even resale inventory that's starting to age a little bit. Amy, have you been watching this happen?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, right? I mean, we've sort of had the monopoly on the market for a very long time, and the buyer really only had one choice, and that one choice was new, and now we're reintroducing back a choice that they always had. And so, again, I think it's I think it's a good sign, right? I think it's still a normalization of the market.
That's a good way to put it. I don't think crash and burn is in the order. We're still undersupplied of housing in the market, no doubt about it. But you're right. I think there is some normalization going on. And of course, this is, we all know it's tied to interest rates. We know that. And as an extension of that, of course, just the affordability factor. One thing that's interesting, there was a poll that was done. It just came out just a couple of weeks ago here. It was done by the Harris Group on behalf of our old friends at KB Home, stating that over half of Americans erroneously believe, and there's no question it's erroneous, that mortgage rates are at an all-time high. Over half of Americans believe that mortgage rates are at an all-time high. Amy, did you see that poll? Because I was stunned when I saw that.
Yeah. Well, if we're being fair, probably if we change that just a little bit and say an all-time high in their lifetime, right? Then maybe there's some reality to that comment. But I don't know that they're zooming all the way out and saying, all right, well, let's look at the last 100 years of home building and what does that look like? So, yeah, no, it was interesting to me to see that. But, perception is reality.
Right. Yeah. But I also find it interesting that The generation before me, the greatest generation, if you will, talked about, walking, 5 miles to and from school every day. I'm a baby boomer. I'm a younger baby boomer. I'm a younger baby boomer. I'm still a baby boomer. And we talk about our interest rate on our first home, right? That's like our badge of honor.
Yeah.
And trust me, way higher. That I won't go through my particular story, although I did have something called negative amortization, which meant every time I met a payment, my principal balance on my loan went up, which is an interesting way to do it. Kevin, I wonder what it's going to be for your generation 40 years from now. Oh, yeah? Well, we had to, what? Any guesses on what that's going to be?
Yeah, we had to buy homes via COVID. Yeah, that's going to be a big
right.
thing.
Yeah.
We buy homes via COVID, get massive help from our parents on down payments and things like that. Like that's going to just become standardized. I think that'll end up on an application form somewhere. Is how much of this are your parents going to be paying for you?
Well. I was not factoring that into my retirement account. So you're saying that I need to be thinking about down payments for 2 children? No, that's
only to be a good mom.
All right, they're going to have
know.
to figure that out. Yeah, no.
Also interesting that and I'm quoting from the article now, from that same poll, only 56% of the 2,000 people surveyed, 18 and over, identified the meaning of APR. And I looked at it and I went, wait. Are you suggesting that over half the people know what an APR really is? And I simply do not believe that. It's when I was in sales, I used to tell people, try to explain an APR. And I'd given a general overview, and then I'd say, and if you still don't understand it, call your congressperson and see if she or he can explain it to you. And if not, tell them to repeal this stupid law. 54% knew what PMI was, which was always... Amy, remember back in the day we had to explain PMI? It's like this really important and expensive thing that you get, and the benefit to you is
nothing.
But there's no benefit to you at all. As a matter of fact, oh my goodness,
right? Yeah. And it was super fun. We still in Florida, and we had to. I can't remember now what they were called, but they were basically fees that you paid in advance on your home for things like street lights or other sorts of. What were those called? It happened a lot in Florida. I can't remember now. But that was always something else we had to add on to the conversation.
Yeah, it's called differently in different states, but generally assessment bonds and at times they were paid up front and at times they were paid as part of your taxes. But they were. There was always fun trying to explain to people, you have to pay. Wait, I have to pay for my streetlights, and
that aren't in yet. They're not in yet. But
exactly. You want to pay for the streetlights you'll eventually have. Yeah.
Right.
Now, having said all that, and regardless of the interest rates and everything else, 83% of people still believe that homeownership is an essential life milestone. And the survey said that 40% think about buying a home at least once a week. The share of those who think about buying a home at least once a week is the highest among Gen Zers at 62%, and then millennials at 55%. So it is interesting to know that we live in an industry that has always been a big part of people's lives. It's something that they want, that they look forward to. And I don't know. How do you feel about that, Kevin? It to me, it gives me a sense of pride in what it is that we do.
Well, absolutely. I think the interview that you did that we'll be doing on this episode, Mike talks a lot about sort of people having to sort of change their ideas, but it's I don't think the idea of home ownership is what's going away. I think it's just kind of the idea of what living in a home looks like. And, in some cases that might mean denser. It might mean smaller than you had first imagined. But yeah, I think that the sort of spark of the idea of home ownership, I don't see that going away anytime soon. Just got to get the homes out there.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we'll hear from Mike here in just a moment. Before we do that, let me tell you that Builder365 is powered by Open Door for Builders. Easy sales, smooth moves. With an Open Door cash offer, builders can give their customers a simple and certain selling solution so they can get into their new home with speed and with ease. Customers can close in as little as 14 days and move on their schedule. No stress, no hassle, and completely seamless. Open Door's flexible closing timelines help to provide builder customers with a better moving experience so they don't need to worry about construction delays, double moves or mortgages, Gone are the days of stagings and showings and making repairs. Opendoor will do the hard work so your customers can sell quickly. You can create your own personal link through Opendoor, which your customers can use to get a free offer. Once they decide to sell to Opendoor, you can track the progress of their home sale while helping get them into their newly built home on their ideal timeline. You can get started today at opendoor.com/builder365. Well, Kevin mentioned, and I'm thrilled to bring to you our interview today with somebody that I've known for many, many years, back to my days with Kaufman and Broad. Mike Woodley has over 30 years of experience in a wide variety of housing types. His work spans high-density, multi-story to high-end custom homes and everything in between. He is a graduate of Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. Beautiful, beautiful place. He's registered in states all around the country. He's a member of the AIA, the BIA, the NAHB. In 2015, Mike was inducted into the California Home Building Hall of Fame for Lifetime Achievement. In 2012, he was inducted into the William Marvin Hall of Fame for Design Excellence. He's truly a legend within the design field and an inspiration to us all. On an interesting side note, he and I are hockey buddies. We live in different parts of the state, but we both still, at our old age, play hockey and absolutely love it. Moreover, he's just a really good guy and a good friend. Let's hear this from Mike Woodley. Mike Woodley, so glad to have you on with us. And I want to start with a very, very beefy subject here. I think our generation really got turned on to the idea of architecture because of our common childhood hero, Mike Brady of the Brady Bunch. Agree or disagree?
Well, it's interesting because my wife's name is Carol. And so we oftentimes introduce ourselves, Mike and Carol, like the Brady Bunch, and I'm an architect.
There you go. I like it. I like it. Give us your path to architecture. When did you know this is what you wanted to do? Just take us back earlier in your career.
Well, I think I'm lucky that I'm one of the few people that realized what I wanted to do very young. I really recall in 7th grade taking a drafting class, and back then orthographic projections of drawing little squares or little cubes and drawing those and basically doing elevations of them is what they were. And I had decided then I want to be an architect. And my dad was in the tire business, and my brothers were in the tire business, and I didn't like the tire business. And so at 7th grade, I was the last of 3 boys, and there was an age span. So I got to watch what they did and realized that I wanted to do something different.
That's very cool, because then you were able to sort of line up all of your academic requirements in order to lead exactly to where you are.
Yeah, and you'd think it would be a straight line, but it wasn't. I got distracted in high school a bit, you might say. And when I graduated high school, I didn't exactly have the grades and test scores to like pop into a university. So I attended Santa Monica College for 2 years and got an associate's degree, and then applied to San Luis Obispo and got turned down and decided that I should go snow skiing for a while. And so I took a year off and snow skied. And then I came back and applied. I only applied to San Luis Obispo. Then I applied to a number of schools, and then I got into San Luis Obispo. So ultimately, that's where I ended up going. So
that's great. Yeah, yeah. But still having that vision, that idea. One of my best friends is a golf course architect, a very prominent golf course architect. Yeah. Same thing. He knew in the 7th grade, that's what I want to do. And that's a gift, right? When at that age to be able to have that vision.
I feel very lucky, and I sort of look back at sort of influences, and I tell the story, and I have told the story often, that Santa Monica College, you think Santa Monica wasn't really in any kind of a unique place, except for that's where Frank Gehry lived, and I saw Frank Gehry's house when I was in college, and a guy named Barry Burkus was doing a lot of buildings and houses around there. And in some ways, I sort of credit Barry for creating the career path I took, which was more residential. He gave credibility to residential architects, which I think, for a long time, architects that did housing that would be considered back then track housing, right? Didn't have much credibility. And I think Barry kind of turned it around and brought really design to production, that what we call now production housing, or I think housing for everyone, really brought design to that. And before that, I kind of felt like it was, kind of a builder, draftsman kind of thing that wasn't very creative.
But that's interesting because when you look at, architecture through the generations, and you probably have to go to other countries in order to do this, you can look back at some of the older stylings in other countries, especially in European countries, and we've still pulled so much of that and continue to pull that in today. And then in the United States, what happened? It ended up being very Soviet looking after a while, right? It was just very overly simple and boxy. It's kind of strange that we kind of jumped over that in order to get to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people refer to it as sort of the post-war housing that was, the idea was, a chicken in every pot and two cars in every garage. And,
right.
And, we lined up these production houses, and you can see, some people refer to them as Jeeps, right? That they were producing Jeeps for the war and then went into producing housing the same way, with the same assembly line process. And so I think that's what our first kind of track housing was an assembly.
Tell us something about being an architect, especially a residential, which I think most people in the public are going to think that in that terms of a residential architect. Tell us about the job itself, something that most people don't understand. Because we look at it, we think, oh, you're an architect, this is just creative genius, and you sit down with a blank piece of paper and you draw a beautiful home. What is something about the job that most people don't understand?
Well, I think, and we may be a little bit unique, but we are very, very market driven in what we do. In fact, I've joked many times that I'm a marketect. I'm not really an architect. And I think that we are as much sort of taste setting as understanding where people's taste, desires, needs, wants are. And so we're super market driven, market sensitive. In some ways, I approach residential housing from a retail aspect because I'm selling something. Very different than a custom home working with someone in particular, exactly what they want. Now we do that, which I think brings a lot of, for us, a lot of, a lot of information on what people want, right? Because we're dealing with very wealthy people that, and are, we do very expensive housing. And so money's not so much an object, but it tells us what they want. So our scale is very diverse. And I mean, literally right at this moment, I'm working on a 5,000 unit master plan. And at the same time, I got a call from a builder that is asking me about the gutter that's not working and that how am I going to get this downspout out? So our scale is vast. And I don't think people really realize that our scope is really big. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Sure. No, absolutely. But it brings up another question, because if you are very market specific, you're trying to respond to the market. Let's talk about the rise of cable television, and particularly of the design shows, and maybe even more particularly the popularity of Joanna Gaines. Has that had an impact on your business? Because now everybody thinks that they're some sort of low-level architect or design specialist.
Yes, it has that impact. I affectionately call them Skip and Diane, but what they've done is they've saturated, the market, if you will, or people's taste with a certain look, and it already, as we can sort of see, we're seeing sort of the tail end of that, sort of that farmhouse or that modern farmhouse look that we see sort of tailing off. But I think an interesting thing that has come out of it, and sometimes it's really bad because people are changing their mind all the time because they see stuff on Pinterest. Oh, I want this kitchen, or oh, I love this bathroom, and tomorrow they see another one, and it's like I love this one. And so for the custom clients, we tell them you got to stop looking. Okay, you got to stop, or you're going to drive all of us crazy. So we have to make a decision and move on. From the home builder standpoint, not so much, other than the taste have been sort of, people see it and they want certain things. The other thing is that, and we're just doing so much more of it, is the presentation in 3D, because even those shows, they'll show some graphic and somebody moving a wall graphically, and so people have become accustomed to that kind of presentation. So a lot more of our presentation is in 3D now. And then we're integrating some AI into that. And so that's been a sort of interesting kind of process. Don't have it figured out. Okay. But we're playing with it. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to figure out how, and we have used it on some stuff, but the combination of wanting stuff in 3D because they're seeing that on those shows and everyone wants to see it. It does make everybody a better designer. I think it's made us a better designer, quite honestly, because we're not, for the first time, seeing something built in 3D. We build it in 3D now and we see it. So we're never surprised.
Sounds like an exciting time to be in the business then.
I think so. A lot of people say, oh, they're going to put us out of business. I don't buy into that. To me, it's more of how we can use this technology.
Yeah. Lisa Kalmbach once told me that Orange County, California is the center of the new home design world. Was she right? And is that still true?
I think it's funny. I was just talking to somebody about, actually, who I was talking. I was talking to Lisa last night. We had dinner together.
Yeah.
And because she is now kind of more diverse in the United States. And we both believe that's the case, that a lot of stuff starts in California. We're very careful not to say, oh, this is what we're doing in California, because people don't like that. And not everything great comes out of California, but from a design standpoint, we just have had so many at-bats. We just have a lot of projects, a lot of homes we've done. And so I think it makes us better. And because of that, I mean, there's a lot of architects, obviously, and good architects in California, but I think there's some good architects, throughout the United States. But we think a lot comes from California, but I think you can learn from everywhere. We do a lot of work in the Northwest, and we kind of think the Northwest has led a little bit of the modern movement. And so I wouldn't say it all comes from California. And the materials that you're using in California, you can't use everywhere else. And so it does limit you. I think Austin, Texas has some good things happening down there. And because we're national, we get to see it all. And so we don't think everything comes from California, but we do think it's a great place to study.
Well, one thing that you see is just lot size constraints. When you look at, for example, everything that's been built in the Irvine Ranch over the last 10 years, the lot size is so small that you have to get creative in what you're going to do to give livability in a really, really small footprint. I assume that there are lessons to be learned there that you can take outside of the state of California.
For sure. But I can tell you, we're getting push density even beyond what we're doing on Irvine Ranch and other places. I mentioned Austin, Texas. We have a project that we're doing there, and detached, I mean, sort of densities that have been unheard of, 20 to the acre detached, which is sort of unheard of. And we're breaking thresholds. Used to be, townhouses like 20 is about the max. Now we're pushing 30 on townhouses, and 10 used to be single family. Literally, I had somebody in our office yesterday that has challenged us. They want us to do a project detached, 22 DUs per acre. And we're looking at, and so I said, well, something's got to give. And so what ends up giving is we're looking at 1-car garage with a driveway, and their whole, and I don't even want to mention who it is, but their thought is they need to break this affordability problem. And so land is expensive, so we need to get more houses per acre on there. We need to be a little bit more creative. We need to maybe get smaller. And so we're looking at doing stuff, 1-car garage driveways, 1,100 square feet, maybe up to 1,600 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2.5-bath. We do a lot of 3-story stuff in California, and the land's so expensive, you can pay for that construction cost, but not everywhere can you do that, and because of the cost of construction. So 2-story and try to get those kind of densities, and we're doing that in other parts of the country other than California.
What about room flexibility as a key here? I love watching these videos on YouTube where, here's we're going back to a Murphy bed. It's my office, but becomes my bedroom. And here this coffee table becomes a dining room table with just moving this over here. And we got a hidden wall. This wall, an entire wall slides. Are there opportunities there to be able to say, yes, the square footage is smaller, but the flexibility is much greater in the way that we design the rooms?
Absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to have to go with some of this stuff, is we're going to have to be more creative with this. And we've been tasked with this in this particular project, to how can we do some of that kind of flex space or spaces that change. We already kind of saw it a little bit where COVID drove us to a different form of office where we don't sit behind a desk with somebody in front of us. We all have a wall in front of us, right? Or basically the screen is what we have in front of us. So the proportions of offices have changed to where they, a nice 12 by 14 office where we sit in back of the chair with smoking a pipe is gone, right? No one uses an office like that. We only really need, maybe 6-7 feet in width, and we can run a table on one side. We want to bring in natural light the right direction. But maybe it's 10 by 7, 10 by 6, different shape, right? And so I think it's important to think about how people use the space and then design to that versus these old axioms that we have. This is the size of a bedroom. This is the size of a living room. And kind of we have to break those.
Are there other opportunities just to address the attainability factor when we think about things like 3D printing, which is happening now, but it's not happening affordably, or robotics, or let's face it, the affordability crisis is only going to get worse, and the number of people that are just investing so much of their monthly payment, especially on the lower end of the scale, into housing is catastrophic. As a society, I don't think we're really even facing this one. I don't know what it's going to take, but are you optimistic that we're going to be able to find the right creative solutions along those lines?
Yeah, I'm optimistic, but I'm also pessimistic somewhat, and because I don't think we've found it yet. And I'm a little bit, I guess it comes with being around a long time, but I remember back in 1985, I did a project that was modular, and that was the future in 1985. And so I thought, okay, but that's a long time ago. And so people have been predicting that modular and panelization, these things we're going to really change the way we do things. Now, 3D printing, I have to confess that I'm not totally up to speed with it. The stuff I've seen is interesting, but I don't really know the details on it. But the modular panelization, I think they're all good, but I don't know if that's going to solve the problem. We worked with a company that was actually building houses that unfolded. Built them in a plant up in an old submarine plant up in Alameda, and they would then go out to your site and unfold it. Well, they ended up cost more than if we just build it on site. And so they haven't solved that affordability. So I'm hopeful. I think the answer really is more kind of what we're thinking on some of this smaller. And you remember the old smaller, smarter. You remember, and I think we got away from that and we got bigger, and now I think we might go back smaller again.
Yeah. We may have to. A couple more things here. It's just such a fascinating conversation for sure. What do you do when a builder comes to you with a genuinely stupid idea?
Well, first of all, I sort of listen to everything because sometimes those stupid ideas all of a sudden click with something, and
Yeah.
it's happened to us before. So I don't sort of like blow things off until, I really kind of look at it and think about it. So and we do this charrette design charrette process where we bring in the sort of the key people in a company, and we'll sit there with our team, and it's an open discussion. And oftentimes people will say stuff, and my first reaction is, "Boy, that's a dumb idea." But then all of a sudden, I always just like, well, let's sketch, let's study that, and then it's amazing to me how many times something good comes out of that. And so I always say to myself, don't discount this stuff. Let's explore it. And that's what I love to do, is explore stuff anyways. And I think some of our best stuff has come as a surprise to me. Like, I didn't think that would work. And all of a sudden now we're doing it all the time.
I vote for moats. We got to bring moats back into housing. Okay. Mike,
Well,
you've had
you know what? Let's sketch it up and see what it looks like.
Mike, you've had a long and storied career. You've won more awards than could possibly be counted. Is there a highlight when you look back at it? Is there something you look back at it and say, I got to tell you, I'm particularly proud of this?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I sort of look at my career in phases, right? And there were sort of highlights in the phases. Does that make sense? I started, I don't even know if you knew this, but I started at Mission Viejo Company, and I started site planning on Highlands Ranch, which is, done now. And it was, monster master plan. And I came out of college, and it was like, I had worked for architects while I was in school, but I had this opportunity to work for Mission Viejo Company. And I thought, do I want to work for a builder? I don't know if that's the right thing to do. And so I started with them land planning, and I learned things that, I worked for a guy who was a land planner and a landscape architect. And I thought, why am I doing this? And now we do so much land planning, and I still think back to all those lessons I learned. And so that was great time. And then from there, I went to Kaufman and Broad, as we always all called it back then. And that was so great because I learned so much about the market and how to hit the market, and working with guys like you, and I just felt like that there had some of the smartest people came out of that company, and I learned so much. And working for Bruce Carrots, who I think is really a very smart guy, and really understood the marketing aspects. So I got a lot of that influence. And so I think that to me was really good. And the sheer volume of work we did at Kaufman and Broad. We did so much. And I started by myself in that company, as we're going to start an architecture department. And by the time I left, I was doing landscape architecture. I had a landscape architect that worked for me. I had interior designers that were working with me. I did national contracts, which I never really asked for national contracts, but I got national contracts. I did the decor, the centers, like people would come and pick their stuff. And so here I am negotiating carpet deals, which I didn't really want to do that. Graphics, we did all the graphics. So we really expanded sort of the whole scope. And so it really led me right into starting this company in 1998. And, some of the people came with me that were with me there, but I really modeled a lot of what we did. I was talking to someone just the other day about the way I worked at Kaufman and Broad. Was every division president was like a client. And, Bruce never said they have to use you. And so I had to work as if they were clients and make them want to use me, which is like the perfect training ground for working with clients, because I want clients to want me. Well, that's what I did when I was at Kaufman and Broad as division presidents. And some of them really didn't want me, but by the time I worked with them for a while, they did. And so that was great training ground. And then starting the company, I think that's just been very satisfying. And I just love the sort of diversity of our work that we do. it's residential, but it's, around residential. And we've even got in to do some work on some ice rinks.
Very nice. Right in your sweet spot now. That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Just one last question here. You've done architecture in the 80s, 90s, O's, 10s, now in the 20s. Is there one particular decade that you look back on, you go, I wish we'd have skipped that decade? Or is there one season where you look at it and said, not thrilled with how that architecture turned out, seemed like a good idea at the time?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it might be the 80s a little
I
bit.
agree with you. I totally agree. I'm not proud of the work we did in the 80s.
Yeah. And I think it's funny. I think about that from time to time, and the stuff we were doing in that sort of fake Mediterranean pink stucco.
Yeah.
And some, I drive by some of that stuff and I will cringe a little bit, I'm happy for the landscape. How's that? It helps quite a bit. So
love it.
I don't think it was our best time. And I remember this almost sort of postmodern stuff that had no basis in history. And that, we could have skipped that one.
Okay, fair enough. Before we let you go, a few rapid fire questions to get to know Mike Woodley. The artist or band that you listened to most in high school?
In high school, I probably listened to Led Zeppelin the most.
There you go. You were that guy. Got it.
Yeah.
The most beautiful place you've ever stood?
Most beautiful place I ever stood. I don't know. There's a lot of places I like. Couple things I have realized in travel, and I said this the other day, I like to travel to see architecture more than nature. And I really think I like the Sydney Opera House, standing there out looking over that harbor, and also in the harbor looking at it. I think that's got to be one of my favorite spots.
Yeah, I can see that. Favorite concert ever attended?
Alice Cooper. I really enjoyed Alice Cooper back in the day, not
back in
recently.
the day.
Yeah,
Love
I thought it was very clever.
All right. And your first celebrity crush?
My first celebrity crush. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to probably say, I don't know, maybe Michelle Pfeiffer, but that wasn't when I was super young, so I can't remember.
Okay. All right. I thought maybe you were going to say Marsha Brady, but that's fine. All right.
No, didn't really. That wasn't it. And I wasn't like a Ginger or Mary Ann fan either, you know?
Yeah. No, I was going to go with Barbara Eden. That's our generation. Millennials today have no idea who that is, but you got to love that outfit. Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Mike Woodley, really, really good spending time with you. Thanks for making us smarter about who it is, not just who you are, what you do, but about the value that you bring to the organization or to the industry. And it's such a great business. We just love it so much. Enjoy spending time with you, as always, Mike. All right, there you go. Amy, Kevin, I built him up to be a good and interesting guest. I think he hit the mark. What do you think?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think you nailed it. I mean, architecture is one of those things where it was always sort of mystifying to me, like this really amazing creative thing that you do, but also needed a lot of numbers. So it was definitely not going to ever be my field, right? Like maybe I had the creative side, but you would never want a house that I designed ever. So it's just fascinating to me, and the beautiful architecture and all the different things that he has done over his career. It's just amazing, the vastness.
Yeah,
Kevin,
I really enjoyed his discussion about architecture over the decades. Growing up in your house, I ended up like kind of with this weird skill of being able to like identify, oh, that's clearly a 90s home, and that's clearly people are like, how do you know that? It's like it's just comes with the territory, I'm afraid. But I always look at it, even knowing all that I know about it, I look at it and go, how are we designing homes in this way? In what world is this a livable way to set up the kitchen? It's across the hall from the living room. What are you doing? Right. But no, I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, it was great. And it was interesting. The first guest we had on the Builder365 podcast was Larry Webb. And Mike affirmed what Larry had said. The 80s were just not a good decade for architecture in general. Most of those homes have been altered.
The 70s, though, right? I mean, the 70s wasn't that the split level you went in and you had to immediately decide if you go up or down? Really weird, right?
Yeah, the old tri-level home.
That's true.
I agree, but the 70s are old enough now to be nostalgic, right? The 80s architecture, at least to me, is maybe I'm just showing my age. I don't know.
I don't know, but I think when I'm driving down the road all the time, I will look over, and it's usually townhomes, and I'm like, those are not going to age well. That is not going to look good in 20 years.
I agree. I've been there. I have taken a drive through neighborhoods and said, just put the sign up, building tomorrow's slums today. Right. You can just see that in some homes out there. Yeah. But really interesting. And I mean, listen, the industry is better off because of people like Mike Woodley. And he's got, and one thing that he didn't mention in the interview, but I just happen to know that personally, is that through all of the downturn of the Great Recession going back to 2007, 2008, Michael never laid off a single employee from his architectural firm, which is just an amazing claim to fame when you think about how devastating the industry was. But I've spent time with his team, and they're just an amazing group of people. And again, the industry is better off. Hey, one last thing here before we wrap it up. We'll just take a hard right turn because, Amy, I was thinking about you when I saw this. A study that was done by YouGov, never heard of them, but it's all on behaviors that Americans won't accept mid-air. Hey, Nolan, let's put that up on the screen if you would, please, and we'll take a look here, and we could just comment on it, what we all think. That number one for unacceptable behavior is letting children play in the aisle. Amy, you fly all the time, and Kevin, you are the father of 3 beautiful young girls. What is your take on that being number one on the list?
Mm-mm.
No
way.
There's so
now,
many.
if they're screaming in the aisle, that's a different scenario. But if they're quiet, I don't really care where they're at. Sitting with the pilot in the aisle on the wing of the plane, do not care. If they're quiet, they can sit anywhere they want.
Kevin, what's your take?
So many greater sins than letting the children. I mean, trust me. As a father of 3, you would rather them going up and down the aisle than forcing them to stay put, where the only thing that can escape is their volume.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And they're
So
smacking
what
the
would
tray
you?
against your seat. That's my favorite. The tray goes up and down and up and down, and they're kicking. Oh, that's the worst. Get them in the aisle. Get them in the aisle.
Not my kids. My kids are very well behaved.
Definitely not. No.
And they are, by the way. So what would the two of you say should be number one on this list?
Fish, eating fish.
Yeah. The strong smelling food.
Association with yours, Kevin. It smell. Like, please take a shower. Please don't eat fish.
Yeah.
Like, please keep your shoes on. Right? Anything that falls under the foul smell, just don't.
Right.
Not okay.
Fair enough. It's interesting. To me, it's exiting the plane before the row in front. It's people who want to barge forward, and it's like, there's an orderly way to do this, and and if you got a flight to catch, I get it. Just say, I'm sorry, I have a flight to catch. Gladly, I'll let you go. But the people that just, I don't know. Finally, 66% said it's unacceptable to not pay attention to the safety demo. Amy, when's the last time you paid attention to a safety demo?
I couldn't even remember. I don't even know the first time I flew. I listened to the safety. Never. Because let me tell you, it's going to be pure chaos. It doesn't matter what you have listened to. That plane is going to go bananas if something happened, and I'm just going to be elbowing my way to the front anyway. So, I don't care what you have to say. And I am taking my bag with me. Don't you even tell me to leave my bag. It has snacks and water. That's just stupid.
Well,
that is not happening.
The Shore Consulting team, opinionated as they are, wraps up another episode of the Builder365 podcast. Inviting you, if you liked what you just heard, share it, please share it out. Put it on your social media. Let people know to tune into the Builder365 podcast. Until next time, everybody, go out and change someone's world.